The Concordat Council chamber erupts into chaos. Ambassador Thorax of the Zentari Collective rises on his gravity stabilizers, mandibles clicking in agitation. The human speaks without authority. This challenge cannot stand. Alex remains steady, eyes locked on the massive view screen where Vexhair's face has contorted into a predatory grin. The translation matrix struggles to keep pace with the overlapping alien voices, some questioning humanity's right to invoke the ancient combat right, others debating the legal implications, a few whispering silent prayers for the human who has just signed his death warrant. Admiral Costo, the senior Terran military advisor, grabs Alex's arm. "Commander, what have you done?" He hisses. "You haven't been authorized to." "With respect, Admiral." Alex interrupts, voice carrying through the din. The Crothful exploitation loophole allows them to continue conquests during diplomatic considerations. Every day we debate, another world falls. They're counting on our bureaucracy. The Crothful Emperor steps into the transmission frame, his ceremonial armor gleaming with the polished bones of fallen enemies. 8 feet of corded muscle and engineered genetic perfection, yet his eyes hold something more dangerous. Intelligence that has outmaneuvered 50 species. "We accept the human's challenge," the Emperor announces, his voice a resonant bass that silences the chamber instantly. The right has been properly invoked, and our champion stands ready. The combat will commence in 27 standard cycles, enough time for your pitiful species to select a replacement when this one's courage inevitably fails. Alex steps forward again. The terms: Emperor Drakmor, when your champion falls, the Krathul will withdraw from all territories annexed in the past 5 standard years and recognize their sovereignty. A ripple of astonishment passes through the council. Not if the champion falls, but when. The Emperor's inner eyelids flick across his yellow eyes, the Krathul equivalent of amusement. Agreed, human. And when Vexhair stands victorious, Earth will become a protectorate of the Empire, with special status as our new primary training ground. The stakes clarify in brutal simplicity: one human life against billions. "I accept these terms," Alex says, ignoring the gasps from the Terran delegation. The transmission ends, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence until High Counselor Vexhair of the Atari Dominion rises, her luminescent skin pulsing with agitation. "Commander Reeves," she says, voice gentle despite her immense authority, "you have invoked a right that predates even my people's spaceflight. While we cannot overturn your challenge, you must understand what you face. Vexhair has killed 217 champions in ritual combat. The last survived only 3 minutes and was a genetically engineered Krolosian warform with exoskeletal armor and acid blood." Alex nods respectfully. "I studied the records, Counselor." "Then you choose extinction," rumbles the draconian representative, smoke curling from his nostrils. "Your species' stubbornness is legendary, but this transcends stubbornness and approaches madness." Admiral Costo signals for a private communication channel to Earth. "The Security Council will never approve this. You've exceeded your authority, Commander." But even as the human delegation splinters into arguments, word spreads throughout the station. Alien diplomats gather in corridors, watching Alex with a mixture of pity and newfound respect. A young Phyloxian attendant approaches hesitantly, her translucent skin revealing the rapid beating of her 3 hearts. "Is it true that humans evolved as prey animals?" she asks quietly. "That your species knows how to fight against superior predators?" Alex offers a tight smile. "We were never just prey. Humans are persistence hunters. We chase things that are faster and stronger until they collapse from exhaustion." "But Vexhair never tires," she whispers. "Everything has limits," Alex replies, watching as the first official combat odds appear on the station's information network. 10,000 to 1 against the human. Sometimes, you just have to be the first one to find them. The training facility buried beneath Olympus Mons vibrates with the impact as Alex crashes into the reinforced wall again. This time, Something cracks, either ribs or the polymer plating meant to simulate Krathul attack strength. "Get up, human," Kolvak demands, 6 of his 7 arms adjusting the gravity controls. "Vexhair will not pause when you fall." Alex tastes copper but forces himself upright as the room spins to 2.3 g, the standard gravity of the Krathul homeworld. Earth's Security Council had reversed their opposition once the implications became clear. The challenge was legally binding under Concordat law. Now they've thrown every resource behind their suddenly crucial champion. Again, Alex wheezes, raising his hands into a defensive posture that feels increasingly futile. On the observation deck, Dr. Eliza Chen monitors biometric readings with growing concern. His neural patterns are showing signs of micro-tearing. She reports to Admiral Costo. "If we push much harder, we risk permanent damage before he even reaches the arena." The Admiral's weathered face remains impassive. "Can you accelerate the cellular regeneration treatments?" "We're already at maximum safe dosage," Chen replies. His body is accepting the enhancements better than expected, but there are limits to human physiology, even with our best modifications. Below them, Kolvak demonstrates another Krathul attack sequence, his movements a blur of impossible speed. Alex attempts to block but ends up sprawled 10 feet away, blood streaming from his nose. "Useless," the alien instructor mutters. "Your species lacks the reaction time to counter even basic Krathul combat forms." Yet something changes in the alien's expression when Alex immediately rises again, adjusting his stance slightly. "Show me again," the human demands. Later that night, after 16 brutal hours of training, Alex sits alone in his quarters, surrounded by holographic displays. They show every recorded combat involving Vexhair that intelligence services could obtain. While most focus on the champion's overwhelming strength and speed, Alex studies something different: the rhythm of Vexhair's breathing, the millisecond delay between his weight shifts, the subtle difference in attack patterns when facing opponents who retreat versus those who advance. His door chimes softly. "Enter," he calls, not looking away from the displays. Lieutenant Sophia Rice steps in, carrying the data crystal. "Sir, we've completed the analysis you requested on Krathul neurobiology." Alex finally turns, his face a map of fresh bruises. "And you were right," she says, inserting the crystal into the display system. A detailed scan of Krathul brain structure appears. Their neural architecture is hyper-specialized for combat efficiency. Pattern recognition centers are overdeveloped, allowing for instantaneous tactical assessment and response. "A strength that creates a weakness," Alex murmurs. "Exactly, Stir. Their brains are optimized for recognizing and countering known combat forms. When presented with chaotic or seemingly irrational movements, there's a processing delay. It's minimal, minus 200 milliseconds at most, but it exists." Alex stands, wincing as his battered body protests. 0.2 of a second where their superior reflexes don't matter. "But sir," Rise hesitates, "exploiting that would require fighting in ways that make no tactical sense. You'd be deliberately exposing yourself to potentially fatal strikes." "That's precisely the point, Lieutenant." Alex pulls up footage of Vexhair's most recent victory, a combat lasting only 6 minutes against a cybernetically enhanced Draconian. No species has ever beaten the Krathul at their own game. So we'll make them play ours instead. On the holodisplay, Vexhair tears through his opponent's defenses with surgical precision. Alex freezes the image on the champion's face, not on his deadly claws or powerful build, but on his eyes. "Look there," he says quietly. "That's not just combat skill. That's absolute certainty." Vexhair doesn't just think he's unbeatable. He knows it, and that's the greatest weakness of all. The medical lab hums with precision equipment as Dr. Sato makes the final adjustments to Alex's neural enhancements. Holographic displays monitor the microscopic machines integrating with his nervous system, amplifying signal transmission and reaction time to the absolute limit of human capability. This is experimental technology, Commander, Dr. Sato warns, her fingers dancing across the calibration interface. You'll have approximately 36 hours before your body begins rejecting the enhancements. Alex nods, watching the countdown timer now embedded in his peripheral vision. That should be enough. The stimulant reservoirs are key to your adrenal system, she continues, gesturing to the barely visible implants beneath his skin. They'll activate automatically when you sustain critical injuries, but use the manual override sparingly. Each activation burns through your cellular reserves. Lieutenant Reyes enters with a secure tablet. The latest intelligence, sir. The Krathul are broadcasting new footage. The wall screen activates, showing Vexhair in a massive arena surrounded by fallen combat droids designed to mimic various fighting styles. The champion stands unscathed, addressing the camera directly. I have studied your species' combat techniques, Vexhair announces, his translator rendering his growls into precise English. Your historical warriors, your Alexanders, your Napoleons, your Pattons, all have been simulated and defeated. Your human champion brings nothing I have not already conquered. Alex studies the footage carefully, noting how the droids move with textbook precision, perfect replications of human combat forms throughout history. They've missed the point entirely, he murmurs. Sir, Reyes questions. They're studying human combat as if it's a series of fixed patterns. Alex explains, standing to stretch his enhanced muscles. But our greatest military victories came from adaptation and unpredictability, not from perfecting established forms. Admiral Costo enters, his expression grim. The transport leaves in 3 hours, Commander. The President wants a word before you depart. The communication is brief. Final authorization codes and contingency plans should the worst happen. What goes unspoken is the quiet understanding that humanity is preparing for possible subjugation if their champion falls. As the call ends, Alex requests one final stop before departure. The busy streets of Manhattan fall silent as Alex walks alone through Times Square. The massive screens that normally display advertisements now show a single unified message. Humanity stands with Reeves. Millions have gathered, keeping a respectful distance as their champion moves among them. A small girl breaks from the crowd, approaching with wide eyes. Her mother starts forward in alarm, but Alex kneels to meet the child at eye level. Are you scared? The girl asks with unfiltered directness. Alex considers the question seriously. Yes, he admits finally. But being scared is part of being human. So is fighting anyway. The girl nods solemnly and places something in his hand, a small worn toy soldier. My grandpa gave me this. He said it protected him in war. Now it can protect you. Later, aboard the interstellar transport, Alex sits in his private quarters with Lieutenant Reyes and a small team of xenopsychologists. The Krathul evolved from apex predators, explains Dr. Hiroshi, highlighting sections of an evolutionary chart. Their entire cultural development avoided the prey-to-predator transition that shaped human psychology. They never needed to develop deception as a survival mechanism. They understand tactics, Rice points out. Their military conquests prove that. Tactics, yes. Deception, no, corrects Dr. Hiroshi. To a Krathul, feigning weakness is incomprehensible. Their evolutionary psychology equates weakness with death. The concept of a strategic retreat or sacrificing position for future advantage doesn't exist in their combat philosophy. Alex removes the small toy soldier from his pocket, turning it thoughtfully between his fingers. Then we'll teach them something new. Prepare the final simulations. I want to practice dying convincingly. Dying. Sir, Reyes questions. Sometimes, Alex says with the hint of a smile. Victory begins with surrender. The silence following Alex's taunt stretches uncomfortably across the arena. Representatives from 50 species shift in their seats, uncertain how to interpret this unexpected development. No champion has ever risen after Vexhair's opening strike, much less spoken. The human's body tells one story, blood seeping through cracked ribs, left arm hanging at an unnatural angle, while his face tells another. Alex's smile widens as he limps forward, deliberately exaggerating his injuries. Is that traditional Crothul combat, or are you just showing off for daddy? Alex gestures toward the Emperor's observation platform with his good arm. The translator renders the words perfectly, but Vexhair tilts his massive head in confusion. In 8 centuries of combat, no opponent has ever attempted conversation, much less insults. The champion's inner eyelids flick rapidly as his highly specialized brain attempts to categorize this behavior. You will die with greater dignity if you remain silent. Vexhair finally responds, advancing with measured steps, his clawed feet leaving imprints in the arena floor. Dignity. Alex laughs, the sound echoing unnaturally in the quiet dome. Is that what you call it when you slaughter beings who never had a chance? He taps his temple. I've seen the records of your so-called victories. 200 opponents, and not one of them understood what they were really fighting. In the diplomatic observation box, Admiral Costo leans toward Lieutenant Reyes. What the hell is he doing? Buying time, sir, she whispers back. The nanomids need approximately 40 seconds to stabilize his fractures. Below, Alex circles left, deliberately exposing his injured side in a move that makes combat veterans throughout the arena wince. Vexhair lunges with blinding speed, claws extended for a kill strike, exactly as Alex anticipated. At the last possible moment, the human drops flat, allowing the Crothul's momentum to carry him overhead. As the champion passes, Alex drives his reinforced knuckles upward into a nerve cluster beneath Vexhair's arm. The blow lands with surprising precision, causing the massive warrior to stumble upon landing. A collective gasp rises from the audience. The Crothul Emperor leans forward, his ceremonial armor clicking with the sudden movement. Vexhair recovers quickly, but something has changed. He rotates his shoulder, testing the range of motion where Alex struck. His expression darkens as he turns back toward his human opponent. You have studied our physiology, he growls, genuine surprise evident in his voice. Alex rises slowly, buying precious seconds as the medical implants work beneath his skin. I've studied everything about you, Vexhair. Your first hunt at age 6, your elevation to champion after defeating your predecessor, your own clutch brother, the 17 hatchlings you've sired but never met. The champion freezes momentarily, his predatory focus faltering. How could you know? Humans are curious. Alex interrupts, continuing his uneven circle. We like to understand what we're killing. The deliberate reversal of predator and prey roles sends a ripple of unease through the Crothul delegation. In their culture, only the victorious hunter earns the right to claim knowledge of their opponent. Vexhair roars, abandoning measured tactics for raw aggression. He charges across the arena, speed magnified by fury. The attack comes from 3 directions at once. Primary claws targeting the throat, secondary limbs sweeping low for the legs, barbed tail arsing toward the spine. Perfect coordination, perfect execution, a combination that has ended 46 champions. This time, however, the human doesn't attempt to block. Instead, Alex throws himself directly into the attack, a suicidal move that momentarily disrupts Vexhair's perfect timing. As they collide, the champion's primary strike misses its target by millimeters, allowing Alex to lock onto the extended limb and use the Crothul's momentum against him. Both combatants crash to the ground with bone-jarring force. When they separate, Vexhair rises first, but a thin line of green fluid trails from a wound on his neck. First blood has been drawn, and it isn't human. 6 hours into the battle, the arena floor has been reconfigured twice, shifting from open terrain to a maze of barriers and elevation changes. Each modification was approved by the combat officiators after Alex invoked an obscure subsection of the ritual combat codes, one that even the Crothul legal experts had to verify existed. Vexar stalks through the labyrinth, nostrils flaring as he tracks the human scent. 3 shallow wounds mark his torso, none serious enough to impair his movement, but their very existence has visibly shaken his composure. In 8 centuries, no opponent has lasted beyond the first hour, let alone drawn blood multiple times. Your strategy becomes clear, human. The champion calls out, voice echoing through the arena. You hide and strike like a scavenger, not a warrior. From his concealed position behind a raised platform, Alex checks the medical readout in his peripheral vision. The stimulant reserves are at 63%, cellular regeneration operating at maximum capacity to repair a fractured femur. He needs another 4 minutes before he can risk direct engagement again. Tell me, Vexhair. Alex projects his voice to bounce off multiple surfaces, masking his location. In your long life, have you ever faced a human before today? The champion pauses, head turning to track the sound. Your species was deemed unworthy of ritual combat until now. Then you've missed some important history lessons. Alex continues, slowly shifting position as he speaks. Humans evolved hunting animals much larger and stronger than ourselves. We didn't have claws or armor or regenerative abilities. We had something better. In the diplomatic observation box, xenobiologist Dr. Hiroshi leans forward intently. He's implementing the persistence hunting protocol. Lieutenant Reyes glances at the scientist. Explain. Early humans could run prey to exhaustion. Hiroshi explains. Not by being faster, but by simply never stopping. Most predators evolve for short bursts of speed, not endurance. Commander Reeves is applying the same principle, forcing constant healing, preventing rest, creating a marathon instead of a sprint. Below, Vexar smashes through a barrier in frustration, his movements still blindingly fast, but increasingly predictable. Face me directly, human. This evasion dishonors the combat right. Honor. Alex's voice comes from a new direction. You speak of honor while serving an emperor who conquers worlds that can't defend themselves. A small object arcs through the air, the toy soldier the child gave him in Times Square. It lands at Vexhair's feet, drawing his attention momentarily. In that split second of distraction, Alex launches his attack, not at the champion's vital areas, which are heavily armored and well defended, but at the previously injured nerve cluster beneath his arm. The precision strike lands before Vexhair can fully react, the human's enhanced reflexes briefly matching the alien's natural speed. The champion roars, swinging around with devastating force. This time, Alex fails to fully evade. The glancing blow sends him crashing into a barrier, impact sensors in his armor registering damage that would kill an unenhanced human. Medical implants flood his system with stimulants as he rolls clear of the follow-up attack, leaving a smear of blood on the arena floor. The audience watches in stunned silence as Alex forces himself upright again, visibly damaged, but still calculating. Your species' persistence is remarkable, Vexhair acknowledges, circling more cautiously now. But even your enhanced biology has limits. Alex wipes blood from his mouth, keeping weight off his injured leg. So does yours, he responds, nodding toward the champion's midsection. Vexar glances down. The area around his earlier wounds has begun to dull, the iridescent scales losing their luster, the first visible sign of strain on his regenerative system. In the Emperor's observation platform, a Krathful medical advisor leans forward to whisper urgently in his ruler's ear. For the first time since the combat began, the Emperor's expression shows something beyond smug confidence. Concern. His combat efficiency has decreased by 23%. Lieutenant Rice reports, analyzing the biometric data streaming from the arena. The command center established in the human diplomatic section has transformed into an impromptu war room, with specialists monitoring every aspect of the unprecedented battle. And Commander Reeves, Admiral Costo asks, his voice tight with concern. Critical, Dr. Sato answers grimly. The stimulant reserves are below 30%. Tissue damage exceeds the regenerative capacity of the nanomids. He's operating on borrowed time. On the main screen, they watch as Alex narrowly evades another devastating attack, his movements noticeably slower than hours before. The arena floor is splashed with both red and green fluids, a macabre canvas documenting each exchange. Look at Vexhair's left side, Dr. Hiroshi points. The discoloration is spreading. The Krathul champion's legendary regenerative system is showing visible strain. The dull patches around his wounds have expanded, scales losing their luster as his body diverts energy from non-essential functions to maintain combat readiness. In the arena, Alex has positioned himself with his back against a barrier, deliberately limiting his escape routes. The trap is obvious, but Vexhair advances regardless, confidence returning as he senses the human's weakening condition. Your endurance is impressive, human, the champion acknowledges, but the outcome was never in doubt. Alex smiles through bloody teeth. That's why you'll lose, Vexhair. You still don't understand what you're fighting. He shifts his weight slightly. Tell me, does your emperor ever discuss the Silurian campaign with you? The champion hesitates, inner eyelids flickering in confusion. The Silurian worlds fell decades ago. What relevance? The records claim a glorious victory, Alex interrupts. What they don't mention is how close you came to defeat, how the Silurian High Command nearly outmaneuvered the Imperial fleet before mysterious intelligence led your forces directly to their hidden stronghold. Vexhair's eyes narrow. How could you possibly know about? The same way I know your emperor has shortened your honor guard rotation twice in the past year. Alex continues relentlessly. The same way I know 3 of your offspring have developed scale rot, a condition that would disqualify them from military service without special dispensation from the Imperial Bloodline Registry. The champion lunges forward, abandoning measured tactics for raw fury, exactly as Alex had calculated. But instead of dodging, the human steps into the attack, accepting a punishing blow to his already damaged ribs. The impact drives him to his knees, blood spraying from his mouth. Yet even as he falls, Alex's hand darts forward with surgical precision, driving a hidden needle into a nerve cluster at the base of Vexhair's throat, delivering a specialized neurotoxin designed to target the champion's regenerative control centers. The toxin won't kill, that would violate combat protocols, but it forces Vexhair's body to expend massive energy reserves to neutralize the foreign compound. The champion staggers back, momentarily disoriented as his system diverts resources to combat the unexpected attack. What have you done? Vexhair growls, his voice rougher than before. Alex forces himself upright, each movement visibly agonizing. I'm teaching you how humans hunt, he gasps. We study our prey, learn its weaknesses, create opportunities. In the Emperor's observation platform, urgent conversations erupt among the Krathul advisors. One approaches the Emperor directly, pointing toward biometric readings only visible to their delegation. The human diplomatic team notices the commotion. Something's happening, Lieutenant Reyes observes. Vexhair's biological reserves are critical, Dr. Hiroshi translates, interpreting the Krathul medical displays through enhanced optics. His regenerative efficiency has dropped below sustainable levels. The Emperor is being advised to. She pauses, eyes widening. They're suggesting he consider invoking the ritual substitution clause. Admiral Costo straightens. They want to replace their champion mid-combat. They can't. Rise responds. Not without forfeiting the match and all terms of the challenge. As if hearing their conversation, the Emperor rises from his seat, mandibles clicking in agitation, before resettling. The message is clear. The fight continues. Below, the 2 battered warriors circle each other, each step calculated, each labored breath evidence of approaching limits. The battle has become a race toward mutual destruction. The 3rd day of combat brings silence to the arena. The spectators who had cheered, gasped, and whispered through the first 48 hours, now watch in reverent quiet, aware they are witnessing something unprecedented in the history of ritual combat. Medical teams from a dozen species stand ready at the perimeter, their presence a testament to the severity of injuries both combatants have sustained. Alex can no longer feel his left arm. The medical implants have shut down nerve receptors to prevent pain from incapacitating him, but the limb hangs nearly useless at his side. His vision blurs intermittently as internal injuries strain the nanomids beyond their capacity. Only one stimulant charge remains, a final surge of synthetic adrenaline that might give him 30 seconds of near-normal function. Across the arena, Vexhair's magnificent scales have dulled to a matte gray along his torso and limbs as his regenerative system falters. The champion moves with deliberate care, conserving energy, his once lightning-fast strikes reduced to precisely calculated movements, still deadly, but finally, crucially, predictable. We reach the end. Human, Vexhair announces, his voice rougher than before, secondary vocal cords damaged from exertion. Only if one of us stops, Alex responds, each word a struggle through swollen lips. They circle each other slowly, two apex predators at the edge of collapse. In the observation platforms, medical specialists from both sides monitor failing life signs with increasing alarm. He can't continue much longer, Dr. Sato reports, voice tight with concern. Neither can Vexhair, Lieutenant Reyes counters, analyzing the Croft-Hull biometrics. His cellular energy production has fallen below 70% of baseline. He's burning reserve tissue to maintain combat function. Admiral Costo leans forward. So it comes down to who breaks first. Alex watches Vexhair through pain-clouded eyes, tracking the subtle changes in the champion's movement. 3 days of combat have given him intimate knowledge of his opponent, knowledge he's been waiting to use for this moment. The Croft-Hull favors his right side now, shifts his weight differently before striking with his primary claws, breathes more deeply before committing to explosive movement. Patterns. Predictable. Exploitable. With deliberate care, Alex creates an opening in his guard, the same vulnerability that had nearly cost him his life during their 6th exchange. A trap disguised as weakness, betting everything on the champion's pride and training. Vexhair sees the opening. Despite his condition, despite his growing respect for the human's endurance, his combat programming cannot ignore such an opportunity. He lunges forward in a move that has ended 42 previous combats, claws aimed for the kill. Alex triggers the final stimulant charge. For a heartbeat, time seems to slow. The synthetic adrenaline floods his system, neural transmitters firing at maximum capacity. Alex pivots with sudden, unexpected speed, allowing Vexhair's strike to connect, but not where the champion intended. The claws tear through Alex's right side rather than his heart, a devastating wound but not immediately fatal. More importantly, it brings the Croft-Hull exactly where Alex needs him. As momentum carries Vexhair forward, Alex drives his reinforced fingers into the soft tissue beneath the champion's jaw, targeting the neural cluster that coordinates regenerative function. The precision strike, practiced thousands of times during training, bypasses armor plates and depleted defensive reflexes. Both warriors freeze in position, locked together in a grotesque embrace. Blood, red and green, pools beneath them as seconds stretch into eternity. Then, simultaneously, they collapse. The arena holds its breath as medical sensors struggle to interpret the readings. Both combatants register critical life signs, both technically alive, but barely. The ancient laws require one to rise while the other remains down. A standing victor, even if only for moments. Admiral Costo grips the observation rail. "Get up, Commander," he whispers, "just one more time." As if hearing the plea, Alex's fingers twitch against the blood-slick arena floor. With excruciating slowness, he rolls to his side, then to his hands and knees. The effort sends fresh blood pouring from his wounds, but his eyes remain fixed on his fallen opponent. Vexhair lies motionless, his mighty chest rising and falling in shallow breaths, but unable to command his exhausted body to rise. The neural regeneration treatment will continue for another 6 weeks, Dr. Sato explains, adjusting the holographic display above Alex's hospital bed. You'll regain approximately 90% function in your left arm, though fine motor control in the last 2 fingers may remain compromised. Alex nods, gazing through the viewport at the Earth turning slowly below the orbital medical facility. 3 weeks have passed since the combat arena, most of them spent in surgeries and regenerative therapy. The scars, both visible and hidden, will remain with him for life. The diplomatic updates, Lieutenant, he asks, turning to Rice, who stands nearby with a data tablet. 17 species have requested formal alliances with humanity in the past week alone, she reports. The Zentari Collective, which previously considered us hardly worth acknowledging, has offered unprecedented technology exchanges. Admiral Costo enters the room, accompanied by an aide carrying a sealed case. The Krathul delegation has arrived, he announces. The Emperor requests an audience when you're able. Alex straightens in his bed. I'm able now. The Emperor enters without his usual ceremonial armor, dressed instead in the simplified garb of diplomatic proceedings. He moves with the fluid grace characteristic of his species, but there's a new hesitation in his bearing, the slightest indication of humility. Commander Reeves, the Emperor acknowledges with a formal bow that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. I come to fulfill the terms of our agreement and to deliver what is rightfully yours. He gestures to an attendant who steps forward carrying a small ornate box. By the ancient laws, the victor in ritual combat may claim one possession from the defeated. Vex Hare wished you to have this. Alex accepts the box cautiously, opening it to reveal a single iridescent scale, one from directly over the champion's primary heart. He lives, then, Alex states rather than asks. He recovers, though more slowly than expected, the Emperor confirms. His regenerative abilities were permanently altered by your final strike, an impressive feat that has earned you his respect. The massive alien hesitates before adding, and mine. The formal withdrawal of Krathul forces from contested territories has already begun, monitored by Concordat peacekeepers. Planets that had faced subjugation now prepare for rebuilding, their populations still coming to terms with their unexpected salvation by a single human. There is one matter we did not anticipate, the Emperor continues. Many among my people, particularly the younger generation, wish to understand how a physically inferior species prevailed against our greatest warrior. They seek knowledge. Admiral Costo exchanges a surprised glance with Lieutenant Reyes. The Krathul had never before expressed interest in learning from other species. Perhaps we could establish an exchange program, Alex suggests. Selected Krathul could train alongside human military personnel. We might both learn something valuable. After the Emperor departs, Alex carefully places the scale on his bedside table next to the battered toy soldier that somehow survived the arena. 2 tokens from entirely different worlds, both representing survival against overwhelming odds. The Security Council has forwarded several proposals for your consideration once you're recovered, Admiral Costo mentions. Multiple command positions, diplomatic appointments, even a potential seat on the council itself. Alex shakes his head. With respect, Admiral, I've already accepted another role. He activates the room's display, showing a facility under construction on a neutral world, training grounds and academic halls surrounding a central arena. The Concordat has approved funding for an interspecies combat academy, Alex explains, not to create better warriors, but to ensure we understand each other well enough that combat becomes unnecessary. He pauses, a hint of his old smile returning. Though I plan to teach a few human tactics just in case. As news spreads throughout the galaxy of the Academy's founding, applications flood in from 50 species. Among the first to arrive is a young Krathul bearing a formal recommendation from Vex Air himself. The document contains only 5 words that need no translation across the stars. He understands what true strength is.